Well, welcome to the Manifestation and Money podcast, Justin.
Jen, thanks so much for having me. This is so cool. I feel like we've been chatting back and forth for quite a while now, just doing our best to make things work and happen. And we finally got a chance. You had to get snowed in, and then we finally get a chance to to get this going.
I know, and this is not the time of the year where I expect to get snowed in, but here we are.
Yeah.
Yeah, and getting to chat, me being in Canada, you being in the US, with
Hmm.
all these crazy tariffs and stuffs that are happening with our governments,
Sure.
it's
Yeah.
nice just to sit down and chat neighbor to neighbor about topics that we like and enjoy and just ignore the bigger picture momentarily, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I get it. I mean, it's so overwhelming nowadays. And I feel like I don't know if it's different times or I feel like I don't engage a lot with a lot of the political stuff, but it just gets hammered at me. I'm like, my God, there's got to be other stuff going on. But a lot of drama. It's changing every day. I do my best to stay in my lane and control what I control and just bring in good information that's helpful. So it's tough now, though.
Yeah, I agree. So let's do that. Let's go into your lane. Please share with listeners
Yeah.
just who Justin is and what your story is.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was a fire enthusiast my whole life. I just didn't know that that's what it was called. So I'm going to be 32 this year. I'm not old by any means, but I really started when I was younger. My parents were the very old school, like, hey, work at your job, put your head down. You're not supposed to like it. Do what you got to do, come home and live that life. And so to me, I had that old school mentality around it. Then when I started meeting other people's parents, they're just like, we're not like that. They're like, no, I like my job, or no, you don't need to live that way. And so I was in this like identity crisis of what I wanted to do, getting around that end of high school era where college is in the works and whatever it's going to be. And I knew I didn't want to go to college. I didn't know why. I couldn't really explain it. I didn't really resonate with that path. But of course, my parents, being good parents, are like, well, you got to do something. And what's that thing going to be? I was always very good at selling things. Like when I played football in high school and I was the number one athletic booster coupon book sales guy, and I sold supplements at GNC. I was always really good at that. And so I said, okay, I'll sell houses. I'll get a real estate license. I'll sell houses. And I did fairly good at that. And all I knew from that journey was I don't want to work for 40 more years. This just is not the life that I want. I liked what I did. I made good money. I was my own, entrepreneur. But how can I break that conventional path? And of course, real estate was a very natural kind of thing for my experience and what I was passionate about. So did a lot of real estate investing, and more recently, I see over the past 6 years or so, I've exclusively invested in commercial real estate as a passive partner in a lot of bigger deals. I've done a lot of active stuff, but my experience grew, and this fit my lifestyle and my goals better and my capabilities. And so that's the 10,000 foot view, kind of broad strokes of it. We can dive in wherever you like, but been in real estate really my whole professional life, almost as a way to buy my freedom because I knew that I was always interested in that path.
Ooh, that's a fun way of putting it, to buy my freedom.
Yeah.
Yeah, I resonate with that because, like you, going out and just getting a job and being tied into the
Hmm.
expectation of what our parents taught us that we're just supposed to go do doesn't
Yeah.
always feel right. So, yeah, to buy your
Hmm.
freedom. I really like that terminology. I just want to touch here for a sec because you talk about reaching work optionality, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Can you explain to the listeners what that is? Because you kind of hit a sweet spot with that.
Yeah. So to me, I never really fire. And again, I also recently kind of heard about the fire movement. I never heard it kind of explained that way. This was maybe a year or two ago. And then this year, I'm hearing about like all the different types that there are out there. I just thought it was one, but my ignorance. And to me, that retire early never really like felt what I wanted to do. And it's funny when I mentioned this to other people that were in the same situation as me, pursuing the same goals, had the same sort of drive to create the life that I wanted, they always said the same thing. They said, well, I'm not interested in retiring. And I said, well, I'm not either, but I'd like the option to. And so work optionality for me, I still work. I just happen to work on an investing business that I absolutely love. I work as much or as little as I'd like. Last year, and I think we were messaging about this before, last year in 2024, I hit my work optionality and I spent most of the year in Latin America, kind of vacationing around or doing the digital nomad life. So I can exercise my optionality to whatever extent I would like. And to me, that message resonated so much more. And typically with the people that I interact with too, where I don't want to hit 30 and sail off into the sunset and kind of do nothing all day. I want to do something, but I want the options to do what I want at the intensity level that I want.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Because it's so true. The fire movement,
Mhm.
it's such a broad spectrum. And you
Yeah.
find the more you dig into it, it's like this fun little rabbit hole you go down. You're like, oh, this sounds amazing. This like financial independence, retire early.
Yeah,
And then you start digging into it. And for me, looking at it in say different like community groups and stuff I'm in,
sure.
seeing the grind and the hustle and then the lack and scarcity and frugality that
Mhm.
came from a lot of that. They're just going so hard for that end goal
Yeah,
that they aren't enjoying life in the process. I'm
sure.
like, ooh, that doesn't feel good. If that's what the fire
Yeah.
movement is, that doesn't
Uh-huh.
feel
Yeah.
good.
Yeah.
So the work optionality where you've got that playful piece in there that you are living life now.
Yeah, that's a big piece of it. And I think, it's okay because I definitely had my moments where I was really grinding and I was like, this is my goal. This is what I want. I had a certain passive income number. So I was being, more cheap than I am now because I just had this goal that I was really, really driven towards. But you do read of some people taking it to the extremes where I can only have beans and rice so many times until I'm like, this sucks. I want to do other things. And it's coming from a mindset too of abundance versus scarcity. I feel like when you are on the fire path and you have a scarcity mindset, you think, hey, I make $1,000 a month that I have to save. If I don't save at least 900 of that, I'm not going to hit my goals. There's lots of ways to make money nowadays, and there's lots of ways to grow your reach. And you can really hit your goals fast financially but without killing yourself. There's a lot of different scales you can hit. So in one path, you have to be very frugal, you have to be very scarce minded because you have just a limit of what you have to work into. And the other path, you have almost unlimited potential in what you can do and what you can accomplish for yourself. So I think that's a big designation too. And it's going to make your journey a lot more fun when you're kind of pursuing growth instead of trying to grow this small segment and staying in this small segment that you have.
Yeah, definitely. So that one example that you shared, you're coming from that really contracted space. You're like, how much
Mhm.
can I take away from my life to meet
Yeah.
that end goal? Whereas
Mhm.
the other path is so much more expansive, where you're like, how can I live this life that I want to live and create the
Yeah.
income streams to support that life that I want to live?
Yeah, it's fun because it grows you as well. You have to grow and it forces yourself to think of new ideas, to do different things, to try different things. A lot of people, I feel like they have some kind of hidden talent out there that they don't exploit because they're just so stuck in that lane and stuck in what they believe is what they need to be doing. But maybe you are really good at sales. Maybe you should go sell houses, or maybe you should go work at a gym and kind of pursue passions, do online marketing. There's a lot of things that you can do to hit your goals faster without being so scarcity minded. And again, you can only save so much. So
Mhm.
you can only pull your quality of life down so much to save as much as you can. But when you expand and go to that mindset instead, you have everything open to you.
Yeah, I totally agree. So let's talk about your journey then. You were selling real estate, and then now you're in the shift
Yeah.
where you are investing in commercial real estate pretty passively,
Yeah.
right? What does that
Yeah.
look like?
So I'll tell you this. I started selling homes when I was 18. So this was about 13 years ago. And here in America, there's some very, very, very hot markets. And I was in one of them. I was in the Bay Area of California. That's like where San Francisco is. I wasn't in San Francisco, but that's my town. Nobody would know. They know San Francisco. In that market, it's like a white hot, very, very desirable market to be in. Appreciation is crazy, average homes into the seven figures. It's one of those kind of areas. And back then, I sort of accidentally niched myself into helping investors buy and sell homes. Now, when I first started, the average cash flow return that was an acceptable investment for an investor in a hot market and one of the most desirable markets in the country was 5%. Now, the year after that, it was like 3 or 4% was okay. Then the year after that, people were happy to break even. And now people will invest in these areas and they'll bleed cash every single month because they're banking on the appreciation on the back end. And so far, that's been fine. They've been making money, but that wasn't really what I wanted. So to me, when that's the path in the single family home space, you have a couple of options. You can change markets, you can go to a less desirable market, and even those kind of have cash flow issues now. Or you can get really creative. I see people to make deals work. They'll buy a house with a backyard, they'll build an in-law suite, they'll rent those out. They'll rent by the room, they'll do furnished rentals. I saw one guy, he tried to put a billboard on his roof because he was like by a freeway or something. Like, and when you have to stretch the bounds that much, I mean, you're just walking uphill. To me, it was becoming very hard for the average investor to create that path for themselves in the single family space. So naturally thought, well, how can I just hit scale? And commercial, on the other hand, it is priced as an asset. No bank will give you a loan, and no buyer will ever buy a piece of commercial property without the promise of cash flow. So to me, it made a lot more sense from an investor's perspective. It also gave me the ability to invest in a lot of different projects because commercial properties are so much bigger that you have bigger teams. There's enough meat on the bone for more investors and to bring different operations teams on. You can work a lot more. It checked all the boxes, and ultimately, what it led to is the lifestyle that I want. I don't want to manage properties. I don't want to manage a massive single family portfolio. I want to be a passive investor. I want to give money. I want to get money in return and not have the bearance on my time.
Yeah. So listening to that, going from single family, I can wrap my head around that. Single
Yeah.
family going to commercial feels like a big jump. So can you share for somebody who's like, okay, I want to go into real estate investing, commercial that
Yeah.
appeals to me.
Sure.
Where's kind of a starting point for them?
Yeah. I'll tell you what most people kind of do, and I'm not saying you have to do this path, but what tends to be kind of typical is people wrap their head around single family. Maybe they have a property or two, or maybe they were an accidental landlord, or maybe not. But they get it. They buy a home, somebody needs to rent the home, they pay them every month. Like it's pretty simple to understand. Now, the natural thought is, well, maybe let's do a duplex next, then let's do a fourplex, then let's do a 10 unit. And they kind of grow into these properties. Now, maybe that's a good path. I don't think it's totally necessary. But when it comes to commercial, first, there's different kind of avenues. You can do residential commercial, which are large apartment buildings. That's what I tend to do a lot of. I think the average apartment that I invest in is probably 160 units to maybe 200 units or so. And those can actually be easier to do than the 10 unit or a 12 unit. And then if you go beyond that, you have things that I really like: RV parks, mobile home parks, self storage units, parking garages. Like you have all these things, but typically once you get into the mindset of commercial investing, you realize like how big the world of real estate really is. I've looked at investments that are like a produce washing plant out in like outside of Vegas, things that you just never even know exist, but they're great investments.
Huh.
So it's just about putting yourself in the room, in my opinion, with people that are doing these things because it sounds very, very hard until you're surrounded by 10 or 20 other people that are doing it all the time. And then you start to get it. So when you're just getting started out, I tell people all the time, if you want to get into real estate, the first thing I would think of is if you want to be an active investor or you want to be a passive investor. A lot of people get into real estate investing for passive income. They go and buy a home because social media tells them that's what they're supposed to do, but they don't know how to inspect a home. They don't know how to manage managers. They don't know how to do flips. They kind of get themselves in trouble if they're not expecting to put in the work. Now, if you want to be active, that's fine, go do that. But if you want to be passive, you want to be a capital partner. You want to invest in a group that's doing all the work for you in exchange for the money. And in my opinion, that's a much more risk adjusted way to do it because you don't have to do these things. You don't have to learn these things. You can invest with somebody who already has been there and done that. So there's a couple avenues to go into. If you want to be passive, you got to have the cash. That's the thing. If you want to be active, you kind of go down that rabbit hole and see what you want to do. But once you get in the right rooms with the right people, you start to realize the concepts are really the same. You own property, you rent it to somebody or an entity, and you manage your expenses. So it's hard when you're just getting started, but once you get in it, it's so exciting to know what else you can invest in.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to humanize you for a sec because you're making it sound so easy. Are you willing to share like an investment mistake that you've made along the way that you
Yeah.
learned
Yeah.
from?
Sure. I would say my first investment was a disaster in the commercial space. My first investment, it was a 40 unit property. And it was me and a couple of other friends. Now, I had joined a mastermind group and it was fairly expensive. So everybody in there was pretty serious about these goals. And I met a guy who was a general contractor and a builder. And I found a deal that was it was a piece of crap. It was garbage. It was run down. It was vacant. The city had condemned it. But those can be really good opportunities. So I brought it to this guy. I said, "Hey, I don't know how to build or develop deals. This is like really a heavier lift than I'm willing to do. Would you like to partner on this with me?" He did. And Ultimately, we just bit off way more than we could chew. We were managing it remotely because we thought that that's what you could do. You hire the property manager, they do all the work, you get this passive income. We severely underestimated how long it takes some cities to inspect properties, to approve units once they've been turned, contradictory information. Like we would have some inspectors say, "Oh, you failed inspection because you got to do A, B, and C." No problem. We fix it. The next inspector comes out and says, "Well, those are the old regulations. Now you got to do these ones now." I mean, we just severely underestimated all of those things. So on that deal, I ended up losing about $50,000. It was my first deal. It's the tuition to the school of real estate, in my opinion, made me a much better investor along that process, which are usually the deals that hurt the most or the best lessons. So it's not always buy a deal, put a property manager in place, and collect cash. There's some real things that can go wrong if you don't know what the hell you're doing.
Yeah, yeah, I believe that. Okay,
You
so can you
know,
explain what that looks like for somebody who wants to partner with somebody who knows what they're doing, has made the
yeah.
mistakes, is kind of has a little bit of a track record under them?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's funny because, like, a lot of businesses kind of created almost by accident where I was investing in these deals, and naturally friends and family and colleagues would see what I'm doing and they'd say, "Why are you investing in this?" And I say, "Oh, I like it because of this. I don't like it because of this." And I'm talking through the deal. And then they would go, "Okay, is this a good deal, do you think?" I said, "Well, yeah, I think so. I'm going to invest in it." I'm like, "Okay, well, can I invest in it too?" I said, "Well, yeah, I don't see why not." Then eventually so many people ask you and you just think, okay, this is something that people really want. And I found that a lot of people, they want to invest in these types of deals, but the number one question is I don't know where to even get deals. At this stage in my career, I get maybe 30 to 60 deals sent to me per month. So deal flow is an issue for people. Then the second thing is when they get a deal in their inbox, they have no idea what to make of it. The numbers, sure, everything looks great. All pitch decks look great. What are they looking for? So what my company does now is I get all those deals. If there's a deal that I like, instead of investing in it just myself, like if somebody would invest $50,000, I will go to the team and say, "Hey, instead of me investing $50,000, my company is going to invest $5 million. dollars. In exchange, we want more profits share, or we want better terms, or we want something else." If we come to terms on that, then I go to my investors and say, "Hey, we're investing in this. If you want to invest in it, I'll kind of raise the money and we all invest together." Now, I make money by making a little bit of extra equity from the operating team, and our investors get preferred terms into deals that they maybe already wanted to invest in anyways. So it's a win-win situation where I'm able to use my expertise that I didn't really notice was such a big expertise, right? I've been in real estate for so long, it just makes sense to me. And people have the peace of mind of knowing that I have a due diligence process. I know what I'm looking at, and I feel very good about the deals that I'm investing in. So just invest alongside me. You'll get better terms and won't have to do a lot of the heavy lifting of the due diligence.
Hmm. And I think that's the part that trips people up right out of the
Yeah.
gate is the
Yeah.
like people that I've talked to too that make the big mistakes. They didn't even know what questions to ask. They didn't
Right.
even know what they should be looking for. So to
Yeah.
have somebody that is doing that piece of it for you and also investing with you.
And it's really big because there's a big alignment. What a lot of people like is there's a huge alignment with like profits. So, how my company makes money, 90% of the money I make comes after minimum investor returns have been met. And there's very possible that if the deal underperforms or if it doesn't do that good, I probably won't make any money. I'll make $0 and I'll happily make $0 because to me, I don't want to get paid unless what I felt would happen would happen. And so when a lot of people have a bad experience with maybe other financial industries professionals where, hey, they get paid no matter what happened. If I lose money, if I make money, they get paid a lot. There's a big alignment of incentive there, which a lot of people find comfort in. And I agree. You should have that incentive alignment. And I'm happy that there's that alignment there because if I'm an investor, that's what I want to see too.
Mhm, definitely. That trust. You want to have that trust in the
Hmm.
person that you're investing with. And all investments come with risks at some point.
Yeah.
But you want to know that the person that you're aligned with is in it with you. They have skin in the
Yeah.
game with you.
These are deals that I'm investing in myself as well. So if we're there and when things inevitably go sideways, like no real estate deal ever pans out 100% as expected. You always have things that need to be taken care of or that go better than expected or worse than expected. I'm first and foremost putting my money here. I'm telling you why I like it and why I'm putting my money there and what the risks are. They're risks that I'm comfortable with. And if you're comfortable with that same kind of risk reward profile, I'd love to have you along the journey. But we're in this together, like you said. And a lot of my pay comes from this deal going successfully as well. So there's a personal and a financial alignment of interest.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you for sharing that because I feel like the commercial type of real estate can feel scary to people. And
Yeah, sure.
like you said, right now with single family homes, the numbers just aren't making sense the way they used to. They're going, like you said, I
Yeah.
think earlier, an uphill walk because you're
Yeah.
walking uphill when you're stepping into them, and that's not a good feeling. You want to come from a
Hmm.
place of being able to get some returns. So I appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of
And
people feel that. I would say a good amount of our investors too, like they haven't ever invested in a piece of real estate. But because it's passive, they understand it, they kind of get the gist of it. So it's a good alternative because I think a lot of people love to invest in real estate. But like you mentioned, the single family space, it's been tough for a decade now, and
Mhm.
I don't think it's going to get any easier. So it's good to adapt.
Yeah, yeah, good to adapt. I want to circle back here to
Hmm.
fire movement, just
Yeah, yeah,
to round the conversation back around here. So, because you were fascinated by it, you've talked to lots of people in the fire movement, and I want to
yeah,
know what you've noticed as common traits or patterns that you see from individuals that are
yeah.
successful in the fire movement.
Yeah. So I would niche down a little bit more as to what I tend to study a lot. There's a couple trends that I like to pursue and see what commonalities people have. My first one is yes, financial independence by whatever meaning that is for you. And if you study fire movement a lot, there's like fat fire, lean fire, whatever, whichever one you want is fine. But just when somebody has that feeling of I did it, I hit my financial independence, whatever that means, it's like this weight off of you. So when somebody has hit that, my fascination is when they're able to do it either in a fairly quick amount of time or at a fairly young age. Where, yes, the conventional path, everybody's supposed to hit financial independence on the conventional path, at least here in America. It's around 70 years old, is like that conventional goal. They always talk about pushing it up because we're running out of money here. Everybody kind of has that at the end. To me, what I feel is really special is when somebody's able to break that convention and do it much quicker or do it at a younger age. Not that if you're not in that younger age bracket, like it's too late, like it's always time, but that's just so fascinating to me when somebody's able to do that. So when somebody's able to do it with those caveats, I've met a lot of people that have done it before 40. And the common traits that I see first is they always made money in some type of non-conventional way, some type of variable way. Sales is a really big piece of it. That was my background. Business ownership or side hustles that kind of grew and like they turned their, what is it called, their 5 to 9 into their 9 to 5. And like these side hustles just grew. Something where they can control their income because at least here in America, I mean, the middle class is dead and continuing to die. Like it's hard to go make 60 grand a year nowadays and have enough money to invest and to play around with after you pay your expenses in some of these big cities. So that was a big step. They had control over their income in some capacity. And in that way, they were able to make more money relative to what their peers could be making at the same experience level and time. And then second, I noticed a lot of investment in alternative assets, real estate, private businesses. Some worked at startups where they invested in the startup and they had this big exit or this IPO. Something about it was just they weren't just investing in our public markets. We have index funds, the SP 500. Those are phenomenal if you want that average lifestyle because those are by definition average. That's just what the market's doing. If you want something outside of that, you have to go outside of that. So I think those are two really, really big ones. A lot of people also had worked at startups like tech startups, and I just they kind of got lucky with the one that they worked at, and then they got picked up, they got equity, and then they sold off. But really, for the average guy or girl, they controlled their income and they invested alternatively with their money in private equities or real estate, something like that, or other businesses. And those seem to be a pretty good formula for breaking that conventional mold and hitting your fire goals much quicker than average.
Yeah, those are really valid points. And oftentimes, I mean, it's probably the same in the US as it is in Canada.
Hmm.
We are getting sold by the media, what we're expected to hear, what is
Yeah,
happening with the markets. And that's
sure.
the normal stuff you're hearing about. So, this non conventional stuff you mentioned earlier, it's all about getting into the right rooms. So, to you, where do you think the average Joe should be showing up to hear and get their headspace into seeing what the other options are out there?
Yeah. That's such a great question, and it's such a massive part of a success because we all know we're the average of the people that we spend the most time with, right? And so to me, that is something that you have to be ruthless with, and it's non-negotiable in who I spend my time with, and what kind of energy I take into my life. I think if you look at the fire movement in general, very, very big world. I'm all about getting specific in what you want. I believe I have the saying that I like. I forgot who I heard it from, or I'd give them credit, but it was you can have anything in life you want, but you can't have everything. So you have to be able to stay very, very focused. So if you look at this broad goal, I want financial independence, you'll never get anywhere because that's just so much stuff. It can mean anything. You will have to narrow down exactly to what you want. Now, when you narrow down exactly what you want, for me, it was I wanted freedom through commercial real estate. Much easier to find commercial real estate groups and people and social media profiles and podcasts and all those types of things that you can start absorbing that content. If I just said, I want financial freedom, that could be anything. There's people that have Amazon stores or drop shipping, car detailing business. They build blogs. There's just everything out there. So I think you have to get very, very specific in exactly the lifestyle you want and exactly the vehicle that you want to take you there. If it's real estate, that's a great start. Now find out what that niche is. Maybe it's commercial, maybe it's residential. If it's residential, is it flips? Is it long-term rentals? Is it Airbnbs? Are you wholesale? What is it going to be? Then when you have that clear path, you can get into those circles. Find the social media accounts that you want to follow. Find the podcast that you like. If you're listening to this, you love podcasts. There's a podcast for every single topic you could possibly ever want to learn. That's how you're going to get into those circles, get onto those email lists. Next thing you know, you're kind of training your brain to think in certain ways that are going to align you with your goals. But if you start out with just this general goal, I want financial freedom, you're never going to get past anywhere because there's no direction there. So narrow down exactly what you want, figure out the vehicle that you want to get you there, and then it's going to be way easier to find the groups and your tribe of people that can get you there.
Yeah, that tribe, that
Mhm.
community of people that are doing what you want to do. So it brings a sense of normalcy to it.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
it's you've been
It's
trained
huge
in
one.
one thing, one life, and seeing what your peers and stuff are doing, and you want
Yeah.
to do something unconventional, you need to find that new community who is doing that thing that you
Yes.
want to do. So that's so valid.
Mhm.
All of this is super fascinating, Justin. I would love for you to let listeners know where they can reach out and find you.
Yeah. Yeah. If you want to connect with me, I am super active on LinkedIn, Justin Moy on there. If you send me a request or engage with my post, I'm going to message you. I'm on there every single day. I have a podcast called Passive Real Estate Strategies. If you like the passive stuff and you want to learn how to be a good passive investor and make smart decisions, that's a good resource for you. Go to my website. It's called President's Club Investors. Right there, I have some due diligence tools for you. I got a whole bunch of goodies on there that you could check out for free. But if commercial real estate is something you're interested in, I talk about it all day, every day. So definitely reach out.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining me on the show today, Justin.
Yeah. Thanks so much for having me. This is super cool.